Already up to the last week of our Plan B journey, ending with our celebration already next Sunday. Today I want to talk to you about the reality of what God has done for us and what we have done to Him. And I want to talk to you about the cross, about our anchor. Not the nice cross like we have hanging in church, but the rough instrument of torture that Jesus died on. Not the cross we might hang around our necks in gold or silver or pewter, but that agonising event that really did shape the world. We're going to look at the darkness of the cross. Look at the confusion of the cross. Look at the tragedy of the cross. A guy called Jürgen Moltmann, he writes, "The cross is the utterly incommensurable factor in the revelation of God. We have become far too used to it. We have surrounded the scandal of the cross with roses. Here the faith in creation, the source of all paganism, breaks down. Here this whole philosophy and wisdom is abandoned to folly. Here God is not God. Here is the triumph of death, the enemy, the non-church, the lawless state, the blasphemer, the soldiers. Here Satan is where Satan triumphs over God. Our faith begins at the point where atheists suppose it must be at the end." He writes, "Our faith begins with the bleakness and power which is the night of the cross. Abandonment, temptation and doubt about everything that exists." Do you know what that means? It means that our very faith is born out of uncertainty, out of darkness and out of despair. It's out of this seeming tragedy, this ultimate plan B, that something amazing and transformational is born. That is what the cross tells us. And it tells us even something more. It tells us some important things about ourselves and our plan B situations. Now, I don't know exactly where all of you are on your faith journey. You might be at odds with God right now. You're not happy with the way your life is turning out, and you might be praying and pleading with God. But is it possible that you don't really want God? Is it possible that you just want what you think God can give you? One of the things I believe God is teaching us is that at times we want our dreams more than we actually want God. We want what God does for us instead of wanting just God. And maybe that's why this passage from Exodus 33 might resonate with us. We read, "Then the Lord said to Moses, 'You and the people you brought out of Egypt must leave this place. Go to the land that I promised with an oath to give to Abraham, Isaac and Jacob when I said, I will give that land to your descendants. I will send an angel to lead you, and I will force these people out of the land, the Canaanites, Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites and Jebusites.'" That is a mouthful. But God promises Moses success in his battle, success in claiming the promised land for his people. That's what Moses wanted all along, right? This is the dream that Moses had been pursuing ever since he had left Egypt. And moreover, Moses responds to God's promise in a surprising way. Moses said to the Lord, "You have told me to lead these people, but you did not say whom you would send with me. You have said to me, I know you very well and I am pleased with you. If I have truly pleased you, show me your plan so that I may know you and continue to please you. Remember that this nation is your people." The Lord answered, "I myself will go with you and I will give you victory." Then Moses said to him, "If you yourself don't go with us, then don't send us away from this place. If you don't go with us, no one will know that you are pleased with me and with your people. These people and I will be no different from any other people on earth." Then the Lord said to Moses, "I will do what you ask because I know you very well and I am pleased with you." I like this passage. Moses is saying, God, success is not enough for me. I want you. I want your presence. I don't just want what you can give me. I want you. I'm trying to get to a place where I believe this truth to my core. I want to reach the point where I can honestly say, if God doesn't give me one more thing in this life, I still owe him everything. We've been answering and asking some difficult questions as we've worked through this Plan B series. Questions such as, what do you do with a shattered dream? What do you do with an unmet expectation? And what do you do when God doesn't show up for you the way you thought God was going to show up for you? More specifically, what do you do when your marriage falls apart? What do you do when you find out you have Alzheimer's? What do you do when you lose a loved one? What don't know if I can give you a specific answer in any of those circumstances, but here is what I do know. I've said it before and I'll say it again. We're all going to get to the place where life hurts and our hearts are broken. We are all at one day going to find ourselves in the middle of a plan B. And here's an addition that might shock you. Being a Christian isn't going to change that reality at all. I'm not saying that being a Christian doesn't make a difference in your life. I'm just saying that Christianity cannot always be reduced to simple answers. Perhaps you might have thought when you became a Christian that you would have the answers to all of life's difficulties. But here's a reality check. And hopefully a pressure release for you. Being a Christian doesn't mean you know how to respond to everything that's going to come your way. Being a Christian doesn't mean that you're going to have all of the answers. I think Jesus understood better than any of us just how complex and confusing all of this is going to be. In John 16, he speaks about two realities that we need to come to grips with if we're ever going to make any sense of our plan B seasons in our life. A quick background. Jesus is about to be crucified. He's headed for the cross. He's carrying the sins of the world, and he's going to the cross so that we can experience forgiveness and redemption through his substitutionary death. In other words, he's getting ready to pay a penalty that was ours to pay. And this is what he tells his followers. He says in John 16, I tell you these things so that you can have peace in me. In this world you have trouble, but be brave, I have defeated the world. Anyone interested in this peace he offers? Notice that he says, you can have peace in me. I think the words in me here are really important. Jesus doesn't say you'll have peace in church, or in a small group, or in the middle of a Plan B campaign. He says, in me. When you immerse your current reality into his reality, that is where peace can be found. The very next words out of Jesus' mouth remind us why this peace is so important. He says, in this world, you will have trouble. It's Jesus' way of saying, you're really going to need peace because trouble is coming. We're not talking about, my dog pooped on the floor and I just stepped into trouble, or I locked myself out of my house trouble, or I'm stuck in a traffic jam trouble. We're talking about the kind of trouble that makes you think, I don't really know if there is a God. I don't know if I believe all this stuff anymore. This is the kind of trouble, the pain or crisis that can rock you to your very core. You can almost picture Jesus in this verse almost as a weather forecaster who's giving a quick 7-day outlook. It's, look forward to the week, and I've got a screen behind me, over in Birdwood and surrounding towns and districts. Monday, tomorrow, we've got trouble. Tuesday, more trouble. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, even next Sunday, trouble every day. In a word, the forecast for your life here on this earth is trouble. And it's true because we're living into overlapping realities. There is a God who is big and powerful and loves us, but we live in a world that seems to be falling apart. And then Jesus ends this verse by saying, but be brave. I have defeated the world. In other words, don't lose sight of the big picture. Don't give in to despair, because I've already done what is necessary to eventually take care of all of the trouble that you might have. No matter what comes, I have defeated the world. If we take the two statements in this verse and put them together, we have what Jesus is talking about. You're not exempt from trouble, even serious trouble. You're not exempt from plan Bs, but at the same time you can have confidence that Jesus will win out over that trouble. In that, there is hope. You might be thinking, well, Ben, how do you know that? I know this because of the cross and what it can communicate to all of humankind. You might be thinking that you don't understand. You're already a Christian, you've already done your business at the cross. You've already been forgiven. You might think you don't need the cross. You might think you need me to talk about solutions, action steps, the future, and how you might be able to move on from where you are. I think that's a common mistake that we make in Christianity today. We view the cross as a starting line. Once we've accepted Christ's forgiveness provided through the cross, we want to move on. We want to keep moving. But it doesn't work that way. You need to know that the cross is not just the starting line. It's the very centerpiece of our story with God. It's the place where the pain of you will have trouble meets the triumph of I have defeated the world. And it's the reason that we can have hope even in the middle of our plan B situations. The author of Hebrews says this about God's promises, and Meredith shared with us earlier. We have this hope as an anchor for the soul, sure and strong. It enters behind the curtain in the most high place, most holy place in heaven. I'm not sure there's anything you need more in this unpredictable world than an anchor. Do you feel as if you're being banged around by the sea of life? Do you feel as if you're just aimlessly drifting? What you need is an anchor, the anchor of hope. I believe that the cross can be and should be that anchor. You see, the cross is not just something that gets you into heaven. It's also the stabilising force that you need when your world is turbulent from a plan B or a series of plan Bs. One of the great things of the cross is the love that it communicates. Understanding and grasping God's unending love is essential in the middle of a plan B. It's essential because it's so easy to assume that God must not love me if He's letting me go through this thing. God must have abandoned me or I wouldn't be feeling this way. If we simply focus on circumstances and if we define God through those circumstances, that conclusion might seem to make sense to us. But when we get our eyes on the cross, we're reminded that there are no limits to what God can do and will do to draw us to Himself. We're reminded that God does love us more than we could possibly ever imagine. The knowledge of God's love is not going to make the pain of our plan Bs go away, but we can allow His love to become the fuel that sustains the long and difficult days that are to come ahead. When our lives are being rocked by this broken world, we need to look at the cross as a reminder that God can and will redeem our circumstances. God does love us, and that supersedes whatever plan B situation we might be going through. The trouble is we don't always manage to do that. The trouble is we're often tempted to take our eyes away from this loving reality of the cross and look for other ways of coping in our plan B situations. It's possible, in other words, that part of the reason you might feel so shattered or broken in the middle of your plan B is that you gave your love and your devotions to your plans and dreams instead of giving them to God. Something to keep in mind, because no matter how worthy, no matter how compelling, no matter how good, a dream will always make a worthless God. Jesus Himself modelled for us this very principle of not worshipping your dreams and plans over God. It happens on the night before His death when He goes to the garden with His followers to pray. Craig shared this passage with us earlier. He said to them, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took Peter and the two sons of Zebedee with Him and He began to be very sad and troubled. He said to them, "My heart is full of sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and watch me." After walking a little further away from them, Jesus fell to the ground and He prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, do not give me this cup of suffering, but do what you want, not what I want." I think some of us might be so familiar with this text that we actually miss the emotion being conveyed here. If we read it again, Jesus is so full of sorrow that He falls to the ground. He is facing the ultimate plan B, and He's in so much emotional pain that He literally cannot even walk. Am I suggesting that Jesus doesn't know that He's going to the cross? No. I think He's very clear about what's going to happen. He knows exactly what is going to happen. In fact, the pain, the humiliation, and the death. And as He faces that prospect, He's pleading and begging for another way. God, please, I don't know if I can do this. I'm overwhelmed just thinking about it. We read on, then Jesus went back to His followers and found them asleep. He said to Peter, "You men could not stay awake with me for 1 hour? Stay awake and pray for strength against temptation. The spirit wants to do what is right, but the body is weak." Then Jesus went away a second time and prayed, "My Father, if it is not possible for this painful thing to be taken from me, and if I must do it, I pray that what you want will be done." Those final words of Jesus are the most important words for us to learn and say and believe to our very core. Jesus said, "I pray that what you want will be In other words, he's saying, I don't like this. I wish that there was another way, and I'm not even sure if I can handle this. But it's not about my dreams, my desires, or my plans. It's not about my will, but it's about your will, God. So let it be so in my life. Jesus refused to allow his dream, his expectations, or his will to become his life. That's what we're called to do, especially in those times when our plan B situations expose the idols that we might have been chasing. We must be willing, if necessary, to abandon the life we've planned and dreamed in order to receive the life that our God has authored for each one of us. And we must keep our eyes on the cross, remembering that our faith is born out of darkness and confusion, remembering that trouble is a given in this world, but that Jesus has defeated this world, remembering that God has been faithful to us, demands our allegiance in return, and he wants us to pursue him even over our God-given dreams and desires. But remembering most of all, in the midst of the darkness and confusion of planted ears, that God is our passionate lover, willing to go to extreme limits and pay a huge cost so that we can enter into relationship with him. God loves us. That is our anchor of hope in the turbulence of whatever it is that we